What is going on, fellas? Today I'm going to be breaking down this 9-game NBA slate here on DraftKings, talking through some of my favorite early look core plays, as well as some pivot plays, all that good stuff in this breakdown. Make sure to check out my free Patreon link down below, where I go more in depth in this breakdown later today, and check out my Twitter at HeartDFS. Make sure to hit that like button, and let's get into the video. So recapping my lineup, I will have a recap on my free Patreon going over it, but yeah, I played 2 Bulls, and then I played Anthony Davis when it was LeBron James' night. I feel like an absolute fish, but yeah, that's kind of how my lineup went. The 2 Bulls were absolutely terrible. Kobe White, Patrick Williams, and then Anthony Davis was god-awful. Not much you can do. Looking to bounce back here in this 9-game slate. A lot of juicy games to target. So looking like it's going to be a very, very fun slate tonight after a couple, 2 frustrating ones the past 2 nights in a row. The first game we have is going to be Detroit versus Cleveland. On the Detroit side, I don't mind these guys as like secondary options. Obviously, it's a very, very tough matchup here against Cleveland. Huge blowout risk. But if it's a close game, it's going to be most likely because of Bogdanovic and maybe a few other guys step up like Ivy and Bay. But Bogdan in a close game should see mid-30s minutes. Bay, he has some pretty solid upside, as you can see. He's been actually doing very, very well the past, 3 weeks to the past month. Kind of averaging like 34, 35-ish. So I guess I don't mind taking a shot on him. You just hope this game stays close, obviously. So 5,700, he looks decent. Ivy, he should see mid-20s, closer to 30s. He's a little bit riskier. Stewart and Duren, I don't mind the 2 big men. Stewart's been seeing decent minutes. He hasn't been shooting the ball well. And Duren, seeing kind of the Jaden Ivey minutes as well. He was seeing, at least 30. Now it's kind of dipped down to 28 the past 2. But yeah, they're all pretty solid secondary options. They're all going to be pretty low owned just because of the huge blowout risk. So I don't mind landing on any of these guys. Killian Hayes, he had upside that last game. It's just his minutes are all over the place. Should see maybe mid-20s depending on how he's playing. And then Alec Burks, if he starts, he's viable. If he comes off the bench, I don't think there's a need to get to him. But yeah, there's a little bit of interest, as you can see, in all these guys. I will mention Hamidou. Kind of had a letdown game the past 3. Before that, he's super, super solid. You can definitely go to him as a cheaper value play now that he's at 3,800. Moving on to Cleveland. Cleveland side, it's obviously the biggest thing is just the minutes in this blowout risk. Donovan Mitchell would look great here at 8,500. It's just, will he get the full run? I don't know. It's going to be hard to trust that. He's also not been playing well the past 2 weeks. So, at that price, he's just more of a risky contrarian spend up. Garland is a little bit safer, but once again, it just comes down to the minutes if, this game's going to stay close. So, for that reason, these guys are all just more secondary plays. Like Mobley looks solid, Allen looks solid. LeVert is an okay value play off the bench. Should see mid-20s minutes as well there. Rubio, I don't mind him as like a punt play value at 4,000. He should see 15 to 20 minutes. He's actually been productive the past few games as well here. Okoro's actually been decent production-wise, as you can see. I don't love him at 3,900. Would rather get to like a Hamidou Diallo or a Rubio, even though they see a little bit less minutes than Okoro, but he's there. And then Seti should see maybe 10 to 15, maybe 20. Now that, Rubio's back, he sat out that last game. It kind of eats into the bench minutes for a guy like Seti because he'll split the small forward, power forward role with Seti off the bench. Moving on to Charlotte. LaMelo Ball looks great here in a nice matchup against the Wizards. So I like him at 10-1 as a pretty solid spin-up play. He should see huge minutes, close to 40. He's shooting the ball a ton. So, yeah, love LaMelo. He's been actually good recently, even in a lot of tough games for them. Terry Rozier, more of a secondary option here. He's going to see the same amount of minutes most likely. The shot attempts aren't always there. He's been productive when he's out there. It's just he doesn't have enough upside for me at 7-7 unless he's going to go for like a 35 real-life point game. But he's an okay contrarian spin up if you want to pivot off of LaMelo if he's super chalky tonight. Plumlee, Washington, decent mid-range options. I'd give the edge to Plumlee. Gordon Hayward actually has a good amount of interest. I'm assuming he'll pick up a decent amount of ownership today. Finally saw above 30 minutes. 31, did not shoot the ball well. He should get you at least 25 fantasy points tonight if he's going to see 30-plus minutes. So at 4,900, I actually do like him a decent amount right now. McDaniels, he's just kind of there. Don't mind him. And that's really it. Sure, you could take a shot on a guy like Dennis Smith Jr. off the bench, seen about 20-ish minutes, 3,600, not bad value. Same thing with Mark Williams or Nick Richards, whoever you think the backup point or backup center is, you could definitely take a shot on them. Moving on to Washington here. Porzingis, the big news obviously is going to be Kuzma and Beal. If one of them or both of them are in, the Porzingis and whoever's in would become just solid secondary options. If they're both in, then really no interest in getting into one of these guys. Sure, you could still take a shot on like one of them. I think Porzingis would still be my favorite just because of the matchup. But yeah, they all look decent here against Charlotte. It's just no real standouts at their price tags. And if they're both out, then Porzingis looks great as a spend up play. Denny, Gafford, Morris, Wright, even Pittsburgh Barton, all these guys would be in play as pretty strong plays. Obviously, the standouts would be Porzingis, and Denny. And I think that Gafford and Morris would be very strong, like secondary plays at their price tags there if there's no Beal and Kuzma. And that's really it. A little bit of interest there. Moving on to Philly and Boston, should be a great game to watch. I love Embiid, love Harden. Embiid's price tag has come up a little bit. Harden's has kind of stayed the same. I think they both look like great plays here and a pretty solid matchup against the Celtics. Harris, Maxey, Melton, all just kind of secondary options for me. Sure, you can land on them. One of them can have a solid game, a decent game, like Tobias did last game, but no real need for me to get to them as of right now unless you kind of follow them. On the Boston side, kind of the same thing. Brown should be good to go. Marcus Smart might be back, or no. I don't know why they have a question about tagging. I thought he was, but yeah, Marcus Smart's still out, so it's going to be Tatum, Brown, White, Robert Williams, now Horford as the starting five, and then Brogdon will come off the bench with, Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, Grant Williams. So right now, the interest I do have is going to be in Jaylen Brown and Tatum. I think I prefer getting to Tatum for the price tag, so he looks solid. Brogdon has just been super frustrating. I've not been getting rewarded from him in the great plays I've been picking. Like last game, 6% owned, hurt his eye, so I guess he lost minutes there, like 4 to 5. And just got outproduced by Derek White and Sam Hauser, which is super frustrating. But yeah, I think Brogdon looks solid off the bench. They're going to need scoring in a tough matchup. It could be one of those spots where Derek White actually busts. I mean, he's been solid the past few games, but we've seen games where he goes out there, does nothing, and is pulled or gets in foul trouble. So definitely keep that in mind. I don't love his price tag there at 6,200, even though he's been solid. Robert Williams' price came up to 6,100. He looks okay. I know should see about 30-ish minutes. Definitely foul trouble with Embiid in there. And then Horford. I mean, he looks okay as well. He should see about 30-ish minutes, so I don't mind him. But the only interest for me is going to be Brown, Brogdon, or a guy like Grant Williams. I think he should see solid minutes here. Philadelphia is a little bit of a bigger team. You got Tobias, you got Embiid coming off the bench. You got Tobias, you got Embiid. So I think Grant Williams should see hopefully 20 minutes. He's been terrible recently. He wants to be traded because I don't think they're going to give him an extension. So maybe that's factoring into his minutes. I don't believe it is, but yeah, he should see 20 minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if he sees like closer to 30, especially if one of the bigs get in foul trouble tonight. So you could definitely take a dart throw shot on him. Moving on to Indiana and Miami. I think Halliburton makes for a solid spend-up option. He's been solid. Obviously, this is a lot slower pace matchup here. Pretty gross game environment, but I think it makes for these guys as decent contrarian options. I'd rather get to Halliburton on this team rather than anyone else. Turner at his price tag looks okay. Buddy Hield looks okay. That's really it. I mean, sure, you could take a shot on Naismith. He's actually had some decently productive games the past 3 out of 4, but I don't know if I can trust that. You'd rather get to other value there. And that's it for me. Not a lot of interest on Indiana. On Miami, it's a good matchup for them. Bam looks solid. Jimmy looks solid. Tyler looks solid. I prefer getting to Jimmy and Tyler just because of the price tags. I think Jimmy still kind of stands out to me there. That's really it. Victor's still out. Lowry's still out. So we should still see solid minutes for a guy like Vincent off the bench. Maybe he starts again. He was terrible last game. Strus at 3,900. Should see mid-20s minutes. Super score independent most likely, but he's there. And then Highsmith did see 31 minutes. He's not always productive, but at 3,300, you could definitely look to him as some value as well. So a good amount of value there on the Miami side that I don't mind getting to. On the Spurs side here, Keldon 6,900, he is questionable. Looks like he should be good to go, but we'll have to keep an eye out on that. If he's out, obviously that opens up a ton of salary value for us here. Podol 6,100, I don't mind him. Trey Jones is questionable as well. Obviously, that's the big news with those two. Because if they're out, they'll probably start Richardson and Branham once again. Would both be decent plays. Obviously, there's huge blowout risk, but I think at least Branham would be blowout risk proof just because he's a young rookie. They're going to run him the whole game, even if this game blows out. So I do like them there at 5,000. He's actually been pretty solid scoring the ball. Jeremy is doubtful, so don't expect him to start. Expect Bates Diop to start. he's kind of bulletproof as well a little bit. Zach Collins, you can always take a shot on him. So a little bit of interest in the side. Stanley Johnson should see mid-teens if it blows out, maybe into the 20s minutes. Kind of same thing with these other guys, like Isaiah Roby. If the game blows out, you could definitely take a shot on him. So obviously, we just kind of have to wait for the big news of Trey Jones and Keldon Johnson. Moving on to Toronto, obviously a great matchup here. It's just, can this game stay close enough for these guys to get a full amount of run? I don't know. It's going to be super hard for them to do that, but Siakam, still like him at his price tag. Van Fleet, I don't know. It's just not for me, 9,100. He's been productive. The minutes are there, usage is there. It's just, I don't feel great about rostering Van Fleet at 9,100. If you do, he'd make for a solid contrarian spend up. Scotty Barnes, I don't know why all these guys' prices came up for this game, but he's okay at 8,000. OG is questionable. I guess it looks like he's been ruled out. I don't know why DraftKings lists these guys as questionable. Gary Trent, I think he looks decent. Score independent, 6,100. Don't mind him. Precious, solid there. Boucher's price came up, so he's an okay value. So, yeah, I mean, a little bit of interest in Toronto. It's just, will the game stay close? Now, this game, I think a lot of people will have interest in. I do as well. Sabonis looks great at 10-3. Fox looks pretty solid there at 9,000. I prefer getting to Sabonis there at 10-3, but Fox looks really solid in a great matchup here against Houston. We know that Barnes, Murray, and Herter and Monk all have tournament upside. I think my favorite target would be Herter just because he's been the worst out of the four, and we know he has pretty solid upside. He just hasn't been shooting the ball well at all, especially from three, which has been his bread and butter. I mean, look at this stretch here. 2 of 7, 0 of 5, 1 of 3, 1 of 7, 2 of 7, 2 of 7. He was leading the league in three-point percentage for a little bit there, and it was like top 5. I think he might be falling out of it now because of his recent games. But yeah, he has upside there. That's really it. Moving on to the Houston side, I think Sengun looks solid. His usage does drop down with Jalen Green back, but still, you can definitely get to him. But I still prefer Jalen Green. I mean, 6,800, we know the pains that come with rostering this dude because he can go out there, play 40 minutes, and shoot 5 of 25 and get you like 20 fantasy points. But it's just the upside there. He played 33 minutes. He shot it 21 times. He's going to shoot the ball a ton. He can get you those rebounds, assists, a couple steals as well. So I think he looks great here, 6,800. He's probably going to be super popular, but for good reason as well. And he'll be one of my prize picks plays tonight. So make sure to check out that video as well. But yeah, I think he looks great. KJ Martin actually looks okay. He's been playing solid minutes, 30 the past 4. He could definitely produce a little bit, so I don't mind him there. Jabari Smith, you could take a shot on him. Should see about 30. He's been just bad at shooting the ball, not aggressive, but he's there. Tate, seen about 20 minutes. He's an okay value. Eason, you can take a shot on him as value, but his minutes are coming down. So, yeah, it's really just going to be kind of Jalen Green and standout. Don't mind getting to those other pieces if you fall on them, but real no priorities or standouts. Moving on to Minnesota, Utah, another great game environment here. I think Edwards looks like a great spend-up play. Deal looks like a solid mid-range play. They should both see about 35 minutes, if not more. Gobert, back-to-back, so it'll be interesting to see if he does play tonight. I could see it's where they sit him in this matchup. And then Naz Reid would actually start. And then Kyle Anderson, the big news is that if he's in or out. If he's out, they'd probably start Prince. If he's in, obviously Anderson would look solid there at 5,000. So keep an eye out on that. And then they did dust off Luke Garza because they started Naz Reid alongside Rudy Gobert because Anderson was out last night. So yeah, just kind of keep the eye out on the kind of the lineup news there when it comes to Anderson and Gobert. Moving on to Utah, I think Laurie looks decent. Clarkson, I prefer his price tag over Laurie. That's really it. Like maybe this is a spot if Gobert does play where they play Walker Kessler more just to kind of match up better. But all these guys are kind of, their minutes are just all over the place. Olenek has been actually seeing solid minutes. So if you want to take a shot on him, I don't mind it. Sexton, I think he still makes for a decent value play. It just comes down to how aggressive he's going to be off the bench. Moving on to the last two games. Sorry, guys. Keep sneezing. We got the news that Kyrie will play, and same thing with, I think, Morris. It'll be interesting to see if there's some sort of like minutes limit. Right now, I'm not going to take that shot. You guys could definitely take that shot if you want to get super contrarian and play him, because I don't think many people will. But, Kyrie's price tag, don't love it, especially when it's his first game back with a new team. I'm sure he'll play like at least 30 minutes. He's going to be productive, but I don't know. Well, I hopefully we get some more news on that whole situation before tonight's game. But with him there, Wood looks okay. The rest of the team just kind of looks okay with a guy like Kyrie stepping into the lineup and playing. So really no standouts for me unless you want to take that shot on Kyrie or if you think Morris is going to get minutes, I think Morris would be super, super risky. If I was going to take a shot on someone, it would probably just be Kyrie. And then maybe if a guy like, maybe if Josh Green starts, you can look at him. He was decent last game, but yeah, it's really just going to be Kyrie for me. Maybe taking a shot on Christian Wood. Clippers side, I think a very solid play here for Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. They both look very, very solid. Powell's always a solid spin-up tournament or mid-range tournament option. As you can see, he's been productive. He should see about 30-ish minutes. It just really comes down if you can hit his shots. Zubac, we know his upside is just, throwing a dart at the dartboard. You never know when it's going to happen. 30 minutes, 46.5 fantasy points. But then before that, 40 minutes, only 21. So it's all over the place with his production. But those two are definitely worth a look in GPPs. That's it. It's really just the top two guys for me on the Clippers side, or taking a shot on those two other guys. Golden State, Portland, another great game environment here. Steph is out, so Clay once again looks pretty solid, even though his price came up. Poole looks decent there at 7,100. I don't expect him to go for a ceiling of 12 assists, but he should look to score more. He only shot it 14 times, was super, super efficient in that time. But yeah, I expect him to shoot more. He looks probably the best one once again there on the Warriors side. 6,500 for Draymond. I don't mind it. He's actually been super, super productive recently, but there's always that risk that he gets to foul trouble or kicked out. I don't mind going back to Wiggins. He played 32 minutes. He was okay there, 31 fantasy points. He's usually better. I'm not sure why he's not more aggressive right now, but I think Wiggins still has very solid upside at 6,000. DiVincenzo should see mid-20s off the bench. He's productive. Don't mind him there at 5,300 as a decent value play in the 5K range. Looney, a decent value play as well. Only saw 22 minutes, but it was super productive. It'll be interesting to see if they do start him. I know Steve Kerr said, we're going to start Looney the rest of the season or for the foreseeable future. And then a day later, they don't even start him. They start Kuminga. Like, what? So keep an eye out on that, because if Kuminga starts, you can go to him as value, but I wouldn't feel great about it because it looks like they'll just throw in kind of the hot hand off the bench. I know Ty Jerome got some minutes, about 19. But yeah, I mean, you can get to some of these Golden State pieces in the Portland. The interest for me is really just going to be Dame, if you like the hot streak there. Simons Grant make for okay, secondary options. Hart is there as well. Eubanks and Wofford should split the center minutes. I prefer getting to Eubanks, but you can get to Wofford. They're about the same price. And that's really it. So not a lot of early look core plays right now. It's just gonna be Jalen Green and Sabonis for me, just because there's a lot of kind of injury news we to keep updated with. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. Check out my free Patreon posts, which will be coming out later today, with more in-depth breakdowns and write-ups. And yeah, hit that like button. I'll see you guys in my Prize Picks video, which will be out after this. Peace.